I want to talk about expectations for some other players on this team and some lesser. Not we know the expectations for Hutchinson and for Goff and for Amon-Ra St. Brown and different things like that. So some lesser thought of players on this team. No disrespect to them, but they're just not at the top of the depth chart. Expectations, we'll start with Donovan Peoples-Jones. What are your expectations for DPJ next year?
I expect him to be even better than Josh Reynolds was.
Wow.
And listen, we've seen it.
Those are some high expectations.
Yeah, we've seen it from him, though. With Baker Mayfield at quarterback, he almost had a 1,000-yard season.
Yeah.
And I think he slots in perfectly. He's the big body that they needed in the red zone sorely. I know Josh Reynolds was in that role, but in the biggest moment, he didn't come through. And I don't totally sweat him for that. Overall, his Lions tenure was good, but what DPJ can be, and he's younger as well, I feel like he can be an even better Josh Reynolds. And also, they can utilize him in the return game as well. So I expect to see a lot of DPJ this year.
Okay. Nick?
Yeah, I'm sitting about 500 yards. Reynolds put up like 608 last season. I think he needs to come up big on some third downs and maybe be able to stretch the field a little bit. I know Jared Goff isn't known for throwing the deep ball on point, it's like on streak routes, but Donovan Peoples-Jones can spread the field.
Yeah.
So I would like to utilize him. Maybe if J-Mo's coming across the middle, you get DPJ going on a deep one as well. So I could see that really coming in handy. But the biggest thing to me, catch the ball and contested tight windows on third downs. That's what he's going to have to do, like Josh Reynolds brought.
Yeah.
Chris?
My expectation is not much, and I don't mean that as a slight to him. I just think that the system around him, like there's so many pieces, there's so many ways, and again, part of my reason for having that low expectation for him is because Goff has made it clear throughout his tenure here that he really wants to take that time to develop chemistry. I mean, we talked about it with J-Mo, we talked about it with Josh Reynolds, we talked about it with Chark. These guys took time to develop with Jared Goff, and I do think it will be a faster learning curve just because Goff now has been in the system so long, and DPJ was acquired at the deadline, so it's not like he's a brand new guy coming into the system, but it will take a little bit of time. So I think lower expectations, but I don't think that's a knock on him. I think that he's just not going to have as big of a responsibility as maybe even Josh Reynolds had last year. I think he could have a lower expectation because you expect progression from Gibbs in the backfield and catching, like you said. You expect progression from Laporta. You expect Amon-Ra to be where he's been at, if not slightly above that. You expect a massive jump from J-Mo. So those things kind of equate to him having lower expectations just by default.
I agree with you, Chris. My expectations of Donovan Peoples-Jones are a little lower. I expect him to be a situational receiver. I expect him to be a red zone threat more than anything else, really, because he is the best athlete in that wide receiver core. He's the biggest. He's the second fastest, but he can jump the highest. He's a freak athlete. But you look at what Josh Reynolds did, he was a big third down target for Goff.
Yeah.
The third down targets next year are going to be Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then end of story.
True.
It's those guys. You look at the level of chemistry that he built with Jameson Williams at the end of the year. Yeah. We all expect J-Mo to have a big year next year. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be more of just a red zone guy and be a big body to target in the red zone rather than being kind of the possession receiver that we saw Josh Reynolds last year.
But I don't think it's far-fetched to think that he couldn't get that. And to your point, Chris, yes, there are a lot of mouths to feed in this offense, but that can also work to his advantage because a lot of people thought people like Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond weren't going to be big factors in the offense, and they turned out to be. A lot of the big third down plays were Khalif Raymond, were Josh Reynolds. So if Ben Johnson is cooking it up, then I expect a lot of people to get the ball. There's going to be thrown a lot of different ways, but I think he can mix them in to a point where he can definitely put up Josh Reynolds' numbers and maybe even a little bit better because he's a little more athletic. He's a little bit younger, but it is all yet to be seen. But I like I said, I expect decent things from him. They signed him back on a 2-year deal, so he may not be a mainstay, but I feel like this year he can prove some things.
Okay, next up, we got James Houston. What are your expectations of James Houston next year?
This one is tough, man, because I like James Houston a lot. I do feel like I don't know if he can get back to that 8 sacks in 9 games or whatever the number was. I don't know if he gets back to that, but I do expect him to definitely contribute. This will be a edge rusher by committee, obviously. They didn't go get the big name edge rusher, nor did they really address it in the draft, besides maybe Mekhi Wingo sliding over as another depth piece for that position. But, I mean, he is going to be counted on, especially on third downs and on passing plays. He's going to be counted on to go out there and make plays. We've seen him do it before, so it's not like he can't. But I just need to see him do it consistently for a whole year.
Nick?
Yeah, I've been on the record. I think James Houston's going to have a big year. I think it was a fluke injury last season, and I think he's going to be back after a full off season to get healthy. And the fact with James Houston is that he's a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Well, he excels at that one trick. He is very good. He is very fast, and I don't think a single offensive tackle can stop him when he gets the jump that he wants to coming off that line of scrimmage. I think he is that good when it comes to specifically rushing the passer. I believe Brad Holmes knows that, and that's why he didn't address it. I mean, we heard the rumors that were coming out in the draft about maybe going after Robinson from Missouri.
Yeah.
We didn't do it, obviously. I think James Houston goes into this year, if he plays 17 games, I got him at 10 sacks. They're going to be big ones, and he's going to be on an island on that side, and he's just going to be able to blow past tackles. I think he gets a lot of that fire back from his rookie year, and I think he can do it.
The question is, will he be the same after that leg injury?
Yeah.
A big part of his game was that bend, being able to get around tackles that fast because of the bend in his legs. He had a leg injury. We got to see if he's going to be able to have that same type of movement.
Extremely fair question, but I have to believe that Brad has seen him in a spot where he knows that he has a back. Or else it would have been addressed. He didn't go out and get a big name guy like Daniil Hunter or something like that to pair with Hutch. So, Chris, where are you at with it?
Yeah, I have biggest expectations of him of anybody on this list. Okay. And that's just because of I do expect it to be a limited role like we talked about, but I think that he's going to be one of the biggest benefits of the upgrades to the defensive line. I think that even though he is situational, he won't be seeing the same amount of snaps as Hutch and yada, yada, yada. He's going to benefit tremendously because of the great upgrade in the defensive line. And I think that you're right. You have to see if he still has that athleticism, if he still has that same burst. But I also think another thing that sneakily plays into his advantage is he did have that one tremendous half a season where we were, talking about this guy's a sack a game guy, like he was putting up crazy numbers. But then last year, we barely saw him. Yeah. And so we always talk about, how do you respond after that year of tape, after that half a season of tape or whatever. And while that tape is still out there, I think that given the moves and the upgrades, the position that James Houston is in with this upgrades to the defensive line, he, again, is not going to be the first guy on the scouting report. Like, he's going to have that benefit of if your offensive lineman did not prepare, if they did not show up, if they did not hit film on every single guy, they might cut the corners and not really watch too much James Houston film.
That's
like
fact.
He's going to have low expectations in a sense around the league, and I think he's still going to be able to flourish in that manner. And again, the upgraded position I think just will help him tremendously. So I think he's got all the talent in the world.
Yeah, I have pretty big expectations for James Houston next year. I think in a similar situation, he is obviously going to be a situational guy. He is that pass rush specialist. He's the guy you bring in to kill the quarterback on obvious passing downs. He's not going to be playing a lot of rundowns. He's not going to be getting a lot of snaps, but the snaps he does get are going to be impactful and are going to change some games. I refer to him as the pit bull on the chain, and when you get to that pass rushing down, you let go of the chain, you let him loose, and I expect him to come in next year with fully healthy, no hamper from the last injury, and to be that guy. We talked about the improvements of the defensive line, how it's going to be freeing him up for even more one-on-ones, even more better situations rushing. And on top of that, we mentioned it in the Aiden Hutchinson talk about having that extra half a second because of the secondary. Having guys out there that are sticky in man coverage is going to be extremely impressive, or extremely beneficial for a guy like James Houston, who gets off the edge so fast, who gets to the quarterback so fast. Having that half a second could be the difference of him killing somebody and him not killing somebody.
That's true.
I expect James Houston to play a big role for this team and to be a guy who is going to fight for that second spot in sack total on this team.
Okay.